Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Pracharine Nirvisesa Sanyavari Paschatya Dasatarine Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangulangayate Girim Yakrapatamaham Bande Siguru Dinatharinam Manchikalpa Karudischa Kabashanubhe Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare. I need a book you can chant. Unless you've printed out the mantras. No? So we're going to chant. Get your books out, we'll chant. Or if you have it memorized, it's even better. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhyaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Mantra 1. Isarvasyavidam sarvam yakkincha jagatyam jagat tena tattena punjitaha madridaha kasya siddhanam. Mantra 2. Kurvam evaha karmani jivishakshitam samaha evam tvainandite tosti na karma liptite nare. Mantra 3. Asuya namate loka adena tamasabritaha Namste pritya vikachanti yeke chakvahano janaha. Mantra 4. Anijare kam manasajagyo naina deva apnivam purvam arshat tadhavata dhyana pratikishta tasminapo matarisha dadhati. Different book. Mantra 5. Tare jati tandai jati tadure tadvantike tadantarasya sarvasya tadu sarvasya bhaitaha. Mantra 6. Yastu sarvani bhutani atmana deva hasyati sarvabhuteshu chatmanam tato na vijagupsate. Mantra 7. Yasmin sarvani bhutani atmaiva bodhijanataha tattako mohakashoka ekatvam pasyataha. Mantra 8. Sapaya jaksukamakayam abranam ashnaviram shudam apapavidham kavirmanishi paribu swayambur yatarvito yatandidatascha sas shidyasamabhyaha. Different meter. Mantra 9. Anham tamaham pravishanti ye vidyam upassate Tattavuya ivate tamo ya uvidyayam rathaha. Mantra 10. Anya evahur vidyaya anyarahur vidyaya iti shushunadhiranam yenastad vidyachakshire. Mantra 11. Vidyam cha yastad vero vayam saha vidyaya mritam tirpa vidyaya mritam ashmate. Mantra 12. Anham tamaham pravishanti ye sambhutim upasyate tatabuya evate tamo yahu sambutam raptaha. all of you out there, you can chant with us online. On to 13. Anyarevaho sambhavat, anyarahora sambhavat, iti sushumadirana, yena stadvidyachakshire. Mantra, that's the long purport. 14. Sambhutim chavinasam cha dasyas erovayam dhaha, vinachena ritam tirtha, sambhutam ritam ashnate. Yes, 15. Hiranmayena patrena satyasyapitam mukam tattam ucham apavana satyadharmaya drishtaye. 16. Pumchame karshi yamasuya prajapatya viyuharasmin samohati jaha yate rupam kalinantamam tate pasyami yo sabaso purushaso hamasmi soham asmi. Soham asmi. 17. Vayo anilamamritam akhedam ashmantam shriram om krito smara kritam smara krito smara kritam smara. And 18. Agnenaya supataraya asman vishrani deva vayonani vidvan yojasmin jurhanamena udisam tenam uktim vidhema. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So yesterday we elaborately discussed the first verse, and the day before we had discussed the introduction and invocation. And one of the questions you will get on your test is why Prabhupada decided to translate Isopanisad. Because Isopanisad is Shruti, it's part of the Vedas. The Upanishads are part of the Vedas, the philosophical portion of the Vedas. And as devotees, our main scriptures are Smriti, fifth Veda, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and so forth. So then the question would be, why? And one of the answers, and there are many, and you could see by reading this book that Prabhupada wanted this book distributed. He's written it with the common man in mind. And so one of the reasons is that there are philosophers and people, religionists, who do not believe in the authority of Smriti. They only believe in the authority of the Vedas, Shruti, right? And so Prabhupada wants to establish that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead using Isopanisad, which is Shruti. And so that's what he does. As we discussed yesterday, the Isopanisad is really a treatise on the Paramatma, and it defines the nature of Paramatma, it defines the nature of God. But as we know, Prabhupada Krishnizes everything. So right from the beginning, he puts Krishna in. So using Isopanisad to establish the supremacy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which then establishes that the Vedas do, or the Siddhanta of the Vedas is that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's one of the reasons. And of course, it defeats the impersonal idea of God and establishes the personal idea. So that's another reason that Prabhupada wrote it. And this is the most important of all the Upanishads. So if you're going to translate the Upanishad, this would be it. And also, because people accept the Upanishad, its authority, just like you know the story where the Vaishnavas didn't have a commentary on Vedanta Sutra. So because people accept Vedanta Sutra, then if the Vaishnavas write a commentary, then that way, because they accept Vedanta Sutra, they'll read the commentary and they can understand the Siddhanta, the ultimate Siddhanta, from the Bhagavat perspective. So this is authority. Isopanisad is authority. So if you're using authority which people accept, and then you can explain that authority, in terms of Krishna being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then that's double, you get double points for that, so to speak. Does that make sense? That's one of your test questions. Why did Prabhupada translate it? So today we're going to read the second verse, and the second verse is a sequel to the first verse. The first verse, you remember yesterday, established the principle of Isha. Who is Isha? Ishvara. Isharvasham. As we said yesterday, Isharvasham is the Isha who's within everything, Paramatma, or Mayadakshena Prakriti, who sees everything and controls everything. And that Isha is defined in the first verse. What is the definition of God? He has everything under his control. And the next verse now is going to play out the first verse, understanding the nature of the Supreme as the controller, the owner. Then what do you do once you understand that? Like, you know, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, one who knows me is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They'll surrender. So what do you do once you know something? So the second verse is describing how you act once you know, once you understand the first verse. So I want to read it. I want to read it and discuss it. We're going to discuss verses 2 and 3. We may have time for more, but it's sufficient. I just want to bring out my computer because it tells me what you're going to need to know for your test. I need to make sure that I cover that. Okay. Text 2. Kurvane vahat karmani jijivishak shatama samaha evam tvainanyate tosti na karmadapyatena. I want to read the word meanings. But first I want to read the verse, and I want to go back to the word meanings because it will help us understand the verse. One may aspire to live for hundreds of years if he continuously goes on doing work in that way. So what does that way refer to? It refers to the first verse. So let's go to the first verse. And so we can remember the first verse, which is being referred to now as that way. So what is that way? Everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota, and one must not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. So I know that everything belongs to Krishna, and I accept that as a philosophical truth, but then I act accordingly. So I accept what I need. I don't live a materialistic life. And then, so the next verse says, that you may aspire to live for 100 years. If he continuously goes on doing work in that way. Because that sort of work will not bind him to the law of karma, and there is no alternative to this way for man. So why 100 years? Because that's generally, in Shastra it said, in Kali Yuga you live 100 years. So the 100 years is like, in this life, of course we know we don't live 100 years, but the idea is that you live 100 years, and it's okay to desire to live. Because you might say, if you're a materialistic person, why should you even live? Like we were describing the other night, on Friday night, that we're living, but we're just using resources. So really, our life on the planet, in a sense, is destructive or purposeless. So why even live? What's the advantage? In a sense, right? Well, you know, the solution to the economic problem, nobody lives because we're exploiting the earth. So it's okay to desire to live. It's all right to want to be alive if you live in this consciousness. And then the last line says, there is no alternative. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. What does it mean that there's no alternative? It means the alternative is creating karma. That's what the last line means. Na karma lipate. Na karma lipate means if you don't work in Krishna consciousness, the only other alternative is you create karma, and then you suffer that karma. So that's what it means, there's no alternative. Doesn't mean there's no alternative. Yes, you have a choice. It just means the alternative is that you will suffer. So in that sense, there's no alternative. If you want to be happy, there's no alternative. That's what it means. So there's a verse I want to read. You might know this verse. It's from the Bhagavatam, and it's very similar. It's from the first canto, second chapter, 10th verse. Karmasya nindriya pritiya. Karmasya nindriya pritiya. Lavo jivita yalata jivasya tatriti. Jigyasya nato yasceha karma vi. How many of you know that verse? You've heard it before? First canto, second chapter. Beginning of the second chapter. You should learn the first 15, 20 verses. They're all verses that Prabhupada quoted often. They're very powerful. So this is from that section of verses. I'll read the translation. It's similar to this verse. Life's desire should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life, or self-preservation, since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's work. So, indirectly that verse is saying, it's almost saying, you should kill yourself if you're not Krishna conscious. You shouldn't. There's really no reason to live if you're not Krishna conscious. But if you are Krishna conscious, then yes, you have every reason to live. You should want to live. You should desire to live, but not live for sense gratification. That's basically what it's saying, in a sense. Of course, we don't preach this, that you have no right to live. We say everyone has a right to live. But in a more esoteric sense, we say, as Bhagavatam says, the second canto, great, you have a right to live, and some trees live for 5,000 years. So, big deal. What's the big deal? You're alive. And Prabhupada says, Mahaprabhu lived 48 years, Shankaracharya lived 48 years. So who's better, the tree or Shankaracharya or Mahaprabhu? So that's the idea. It's kind of saying, if you're Krishna conscious, no problem. You can live a full life. But if you're not Krishna conscious, you're just creating karma, so what's the point? You know the story Prabhupada tells? Jivava Marova. The sadhus giving blessings. And to the butcher, he said, Jivova Marova, don't live, don't die. Now why is he saying to the butcher, don't live, don't die? Because by living you're killing animals, and by dying you're going to go to hell. So there's no reason to live, and there's no reason to die. So it's kind of like that's the condition of material life, Jivova Marova. You're going to work, you're doing so many things, and you're getting money, and you're buying meat, and you're going to the pubs, and you're committing so much sin. So better don't live. And you're destroying the planet also. And you see before your eyes what's going on in your own country, how materialistic it's become, and how leaders and social media and the film industry and so forth is degrading us. So why do those people need to live? The Brahmins need to live, and people who engage in spiritual activity, they should live. And then he blessed the prince. So the prince said, okay, your life, you're enjoying life, that's fine. But when you die, you go to hell. So don't die. Just live forever. Yeah. But in the sense that this verse is describing, is just why live forever in sense gratification? What's the point? There is no point. But if you can live in Krishna consciousness, yeah, you should desire. You should desire to be healthy. You should desire to live a long life because I can serve Krishna. Right? So just like Prabhupada said, number 1, take care of your health. Number 2, sadhana. Number 3, service. Starts with your health. Because if your body doesn't work, you can't do anything else. So I'm so concerned about my body that I get enough rest, I drink enough water, I eat the right food, I take supplements and so on, and someone may think, Prabhu, you're in the bodily concept. No, I need this body to serve. But if I'm doing the same thing and I'm only engaged in sense gratification, then in a sense it's sinful, because the result is I engage in sin. You know, one time Prabhupada said, Prabhupada was asked, if we're doing business and people pay us for our product, do they benefit? This was a temple business. And Prabhupada said, where is the money going? He said, well, the money's going to the temple, it's going for seva. And he said, well, if the money's going for seva, then they benefit. So everything is a consequence of where it's being used, right? So I'm maintaining my body, but what am I using it for? Krishna. So we have to look at the consequence. So the consequence verifies the action, right? So if I'm acting just like you're acting, just like he's acting, but one is for Krishna and one isn't, then the same action, but the result is completely different. So, karmasya nendriya priti. Life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life, or self-preservation, since a human being is meant for inquiring about the absolute truth. That's the idea. I have a job to perform, self-realization, so I should want to live for that reason, not for any other reason. In a sense, it's sinful, because I'm maintaining myself, but I'm engaging in sin. So the very maintenance of myself, my life, is sinful. Na karma lipyate nare. There's no alternative for this if you want to live a peaceful and prosperous life and make your life perfect. There's no alternative. The alternative is great karma. Right? So let's read the purport. I'll read the verse again. No, I want to read the word meaning to give us some insight. Korvan, doing continuously, eva, thus, iha, during this span of life, karmani, work, jijivishet, one should desire to live, shatam, 100, samaha, years, evam, so living, twai, unto you, na, no, anyata, alternative, itaha, from this path, asti, there is not karma, work, lipyate, can be bound, nare, unto a man. In other words, not karma, lipyate, nare means you won't be bound if you work in this way. So forth. No one wants to die and everyone wants to live for as long as he can. Drag on. That's a little sarcastic. What does Prabhupada mean? It means your body's falling apart, you're 108 years old, but you want to drag on a little further, a little longer. Finish your business, which will never be finished. This temperament is not only visible individually, but also it is visible collectively in the community, society, and nation. There is a hard struggle for life in every class of living entities. And the Veda says that this is quite natural for the living being. The living being is eternal by nature, but due to his bondage in the material existence, he has to change his body from one to another. This process is called transmigration of the soul. This transmigration is also called karma bandhana, or being bound by one's own work. It's funny. This word karma bandhana, you think about it, it's like getting a rope and tying yourself up, and then you can't do anything. You can't. That's actually, when we're engaged in material activities, that's actually what we're doing. We're tying ourselves up, which guarantees that we'll take birth again in another body. I don't know if you think having another body is a good idea, I don't know if you like having a body, but definitely when you're sick you don't like having a body, and definitely when you're disturbed you don't like having a body. Isn't it? We only like having a body when we're enjoying, which is kind of the lower percentage of the time. Most of the time we're just working and being kind of uncomfortable inside the body. And so we've tied ourselves up, and by our actions we are creating the next body. That's called karma bandhana. Interesting, isn't it? You're tying yourself up. And that will come up in the next verse. I think this verse and the next verse. Next verse, atmaha, killing ourselves. Soul-killing civilization. It's an interesting word. It's used in the next verse. The living entity has to work for his livelihood because that is the law of material nature. And if he does not act according to the prescribed duties of his particular life, he transgresses the law of nature, making himself bound more and more in the cycle of birth and death. Jagannath Swami ki jai. Hare Krishna. Yes. Gaurnitai ki jai. Radha, what's the name of the deity? Radha Govinda? Krishna Chandra. Radha Krishna Chandra ki jai. Lakshmi Nishringa. Lakshmi Nishringa ki jai. Namo Vishnu Paraya Krishna Krishna. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru. Now, I was reading this morning, I was reading some commentaries on Isopanisad, and the last thing we read here is, I want to read the last sentence, and then I want to tell you what's in the commentary. The living entity has to work for his livelihood, because that is the law of nature. And if he does not act according to the prescribed duties of his particular life, he transgresses the law of nature, making himself bound more and more in the cycle of birth and death. So what the Acharyas say is you have two things. One, you act and you create karma. So then someone will think, well, if I don't act, I won't create karma. But the Acharyas say, no, the only way to become free from karma is to act in Krishna consciousness. You can't become free from karma by not acting. And therefore, it said you have to do your duty. You can't sit around and do nothing. That's not going to solve the problem. That's materially, that seems to be logical. If I'm doing something wrong, I just stop doing it, then I'm not doing anything wrong. But no, you're breathing, you're living, you're creating karma because it's not for Krishna. So doing nothing is not the solution. Right? So when we say not karma lipyate in the way, there's no alternative. Part of the no alternative is there is no alternative, and doing nothing is not an alternative. It's, well, if I'm doing something sinful, I'll stop doing it. That solves the problem. No, it doesn't. Right? Stop eating this food, it's making you sick, but now you're sick. You have to do something to cure yourself. Does that make sense? The cycle of birth and death is present in life other than the human form. When the living entity gets the chance for human life, however, it is his chance to get free from the chain of the law of karma. Karma, akarma, and vikarma. Okay, pay attention, this is going to be on your test. Karma, akarma, and vikarma. Karma, akarma, and vikarma are principles. Karma, akarma, and vikarma are principles very clearly described in Bhagavad Gita. Actions which are done in terms of prescribed duties mentioned in the revealed scriptures are called karma. So we sometimes use the word karma maybe more loosely than Shastra does. But when we say karma, when you're talking about karma in the context that Prabhupada's talking about, you're talking about creating good karma. Right? Because he's saying karma means actions which are described in the Vedas, which are creating karma. So you go to the Vedas, You look in the Vedas and think, okay, well, how can I create good karma? How can I avoid bad karma? And it tells you what to do. And so actions according to the Vedas are considered karma. And then, if you act whimsically, not according to Shastra, it's called vikarma. Right? So, we say karmis. Karmis means one who's creating karma. It's not necessarily the same karma. I think when we say karmi, we really mean vikarma. Because karmi really means one who's following the Vedas. And we say, oh, the karmis are working so hard. But if they're not following the Vedas, then they're vikarmis, right? The vikarmis are working hard. Karmis may be working hard also. But at least they're following the Vedic path. So you have karma, those who follow the Vedic path, and they follow it, obviously, to create good karma, so they can janmaishvarya shuta shrivya edamanamada. They can get a good birth in the next life and get a beautiful body, good education, wealth, and so forth. And then you have people who, Shastra Vidim Utsvija, which Krishna says in the Gita, they just give up the Shastra, they don't care about it. I have my own religion, and I don't follow anybody, I have my own guru, this and that. Look at India, we follow the Vedas, so many problems, it's so dirty, disease, poverty, blah, blah, blah. And so, that's there. So, Krishna says, they give up the Shastra because whimsy. The Shastra Vidyam Utsvija. Vartate kama karta. Kama karta means I do whatever I want. That's vikarma. And of course, in countries outside of India, where there's no Veda, then it's basically vikarma. Or they may have some religion. So we'll give them the benefit of the doubt if they follow their religion. But of course, the certain religions advocate the killing of animals. So how can we say they're not creating karma by following their religion? Because it's only religion on paper. It's not really religion according to Vedas. So then you have akarma. Akarma means you're not creating any karma. That's devotional service. Bhakti. It's free of karma. And then the good news is, if there's no karma, then you don't have to come back. And as you all well know, if you create good karma, you have to come back to enjoy your good karma. And as you all know, nobody has perfectly good karma. Right? Do the wealthy people have problems? Do they get sick? Do they have relationship issues? Of course, they just have good wealth karma. But it's very difficult to find someone who's got it covered on every level, isn't it? Good karma in all aspects of life. Life is generally not that way. You're a very generous person in this life, in your next life you become wealthy, but in other ways you may suffer because of sins that you committed. And then what does Prabhupada say? This is the scary part. Just by existing, you're killing. Every time you breathe, you're killing. Every time you cook, you're killing. When you walk, you're walking on so many creatures, insects. And we have to suffer for that. Unless we're walking to the temple or walking on Sankirtan or walking, chanting our rounds or cooking for Krishna. And that's pretty scary, isn't it? That means like there's no way to get out of the material world, because even if you're perfectly pious, so to speak, you're still committing sin unknowingly. So yeah, I do my pious activity. Okay, I do my ritual, karma kanda, whatever, but still, unavoidably, I commit sin. Right? Isn't it? Unavoidably, I may offend somebody, may get angry at somebody. And there's all sinful reactions. So that's the problem. You can't be perfectly sinless unless you engage in devotional service. So first verse, Krishna owns everything. We don't own everything. Second verse, and if you act in the consciousness that Krishna owns everything, there's no false ego. So I was explaining this a little bit, but I think we should explain it more. What does false ego mean? Well, one way of defining false ego, as Prabhupada does, is false identification. And then Prabhupada expands false identification from the body to the bodies in your family, to the bodies in your country, to the land itself. You know that saying, Boma Ijadi, that the fools worship their place of birth. This is my land, my country, my home. So what Prabhupada is saying is you're expanding your sense of identity of this is mine, from the body to the wife to the kids to the country, as far as you feel like expanding it. This is mine. That's false ego. Right? So there's billions of dollars in the world, and I want to get as much of that as mine as possible. A devotee thinks there's billions of dollars and none of it is mine, it's all Krishna's. The body is not mine, it doesn't belong to me. I don't have a right to use it for sense gratification because it belongs to Krishna. My wife, she is not my servant, she's Krishna's servant. She doesn't belong to me, my husband doesn't belong to me. He is not my servant, he is Krishna's servant. This is real ego. There's no identification of anything as mine. As soon as you say anything is mine, that's false ego. Isn't that interesting? Whether it's my mind, my body, my wife, my watch, my anything, as soon as you put after, if you say my blank, that's false ego. Unless you say Krishna's mine, and I'm Krishna's. So, real ego, as we said, idam Krishnaya, idam namama. This is for Krishna, this is not for me. That's real ego. Oh, my wife, this is for Krishna. Oh, my body, this is for Krishna. Oh, my mind, this is for Krishna. Oh, my money, this is for Krishna. That's real ego. And as soon as we think my, then we're in trouble. Now, I have given a seminar on the mind, and I just give this as a little bonus point for you. When we have a thought, false ego says, I am that thought. Real ego observes the thought. I am not the thought, it's a thought which I observe. Right? And you all know when you identify with the thought, what do? You act according to that thought. If the thought says, do this, and you think that is you, you will do it. Isn't it? Look at that ice cream. It looks delicious. And the mind says, you want it. You should eat it. And at that point, if you can pull out and say, no, this is just the mind talking. It's not me. It has nothing to do with me. It's just my mind. I don't need this ice cream. In fact, it's not even good for me. So I'm not going to take it. You have not identified with that thought. And that's why you could detach and control it, because you don't see that thought as you. But generally, when we act according to the mind, it's at that point we've identified that thought as ourself. Just as we identify the body as ourself, or our possessions as ourself, this is more subtle, but we identified the thought. And as soon as we identify the thought as ourself, that's when we act. Isn't it? Think about it. Have you ever done something you regretted? Yes, many times we have. Why? Because we identified the thought. And the thought said, you want this, and we thought that was us. It wasn't us, it was false ego. That said, I am that thought. Just this one idea completely liberate you from all your problems. To just realize, I am not the thought, I am the observer of the thought, and I could decide what thought to choose and what thought not to choose. If you could do that, life would be a lot easier, wouldn't it? You agree? Yeah. So, okay, I have all these thoughts. Which one should I choose and which one should I not choose? I heard something once which I really liked. And it was about mind control, but it was presented in a little different angle. He wasn't talking about mind control per se, he was talking about what you focus on. Because our mind has 60, 70,000 thoughts a day. So, and you can't control those thoughts, they just come, right? Have you noticed? So he was saying, which I agree is the way to deal with it, it's not mind control per se, but it's mind focus. What thought do you want to give attention to? Dayato vishayam punsam. What does Krishna say? What thought are you meditating on right now? Well, that thought's going to determine your actions, right? So I calculated 65,000 thoughts a day. It's about one thought every 2 to 3 minutes. So we have one thought every 2 to 3 minutes, right? So that's a lot of thoughts, right? How many seconds in a minute? So how many thoughts per hour? A lot of thoughts, right? Not one thought every 2 to 3 minutes, one thought every 2 to 3 seconds. Yeah. Right? So, let's make the math easy. 30 thoughts a minute. Right? 30 thoughts a minute. How many minutes in an hour? Yeah. There's a lot of thoughts. Thought. 1, 2, 3, new thought. 1, 2, 3, new thought. So, what thought do you choose to focus on? That's the key. Not, control my mind. I have all these thoughts. If I'm Krishna conscious, I'll be thinking Krishna conscious thoughts. But until I'm Krishna conscious, so many conditioned thoughts will come. What do I want to focus on? You have to stand back. When false ego comes, it'll identify with all the thoughts. Oh, these are my thoughts. Oh, look at that, I want that. And as soon as the mind says, I want it, if we identify with the thought, that thought is me, we will go after it. Dayato Visham will become attached, Sangha, and we'll go after it. That's how it works. Isn't that interesting? That's not me. It's just a thought. Just like in the Bhagavatam, 11th canto, devotee is saying, I have so many desires, and I am just a nonsense. And he's a prayer to Krishna. He said, but Krishna, in spite of all these desires, I just want your service. So he's like observing his life and observing his mind and observing his desires. And he's praying to Krishna. He said, whatever, these desires are there. I don't care. I'm not going to do anything about them. They're just there due to my past sins. You know that verse? 11th canto? Yeah, there's a purport by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in the 11th canto. And he's describing how a devotee deals with all his desires. And the devotee is saying, it's like the devotee's looking at his desires like it's a movie. And it's like, yeah, look at my life, I have all these desires. But then he prays to Krishna. He said, Krishna, if it's my karma that due to my past sins, I have all these samskaras, so all these desires are there, then I'll accept that, but I'm not going to act on them. Isn't that interesting? It's like saying, okay, they're there, but you should know, Krishna, that even though they're there, if I have to tolerate them, I will tolerate them, but I'm going to be your devotee. So that's no false ego. There's no identification with it. Isn't that interesting? Because most of us, when we have desire, we get frustrated. Oh, I have so many desires, and how can I be Krishna conscious? What are we saying? We're saying I have so many desires that I'm acting on. So here we can learn, you may have so many desires, but you don't have to act on them. It's when false ego interrupts you, then you act on them, because then you think, these are my desires. I want this. That's me. That's who I am. And then I go for it. But this devotee is saying, I want this. Yeah, that's conditioned desire from so many lifetimes. But I want Krishna. I don't want this. And I recognize that this desire is not me. It's just a conditioned desire, and I detach from it. Because my desire is to be Krishna conscious. Sounds simple, right? Simple on paper, a little more difficult to execute. But you understand the principle. So, I want to give another example. This is a beautiful example. A beautiful example Prabhupada gives. Prabhupada said that you cannot offer anything to Krishna which is not spiritual. And so we might think, but wait a minute, after you offer it, it becomes spiritual. So how can I offer it if it's spiritual? So Prabhupada explained. What is the difference between material and spiritual? And we say the difference is in consciousness, not in the object itself. Is this clock spiritual? Yes or no? Is it spiritual or material?
Because you're touching it.
Not because I'm touching it, but because we're using it. We're using it so I don't go overtime. So we're using it to end the class on time. and therefore it's spiritual. And so we say, oh, this clock is for Krishna's service. That's all. We don't use it for anything else. The computer is for Krishna's service. So Prabhupada said, spiritual is all about how you see it. So he said, you must offer something to Krishna that's spiritual. Because as you know, when you're offering something to Krishna, you don't smell it, you don't relish it, you don't enjoy it. Right? Because if you do, what happened to that object? Now it's material. You enjoyed it. You thought of it in terms of, this is mine, false ego again. Right? Oh, look at this beautiful flower. My flower, for me to enjoy. Right? Isn't it? When you see a flower, what's the natural response? Oh, smell it. This flower is for me. False ego. It's mine. So you can't offer that flower now because you enjoy it, either visually or you smelt it. You can't enjoy it. So when you see that flower, and then you think, oh, this is a beautiful flower, and I know these flowers have a very beautiful fragrance, I want to offer this to Krishna. Then Prabhupada said, now that flower is spiritual. Because you never saw it through false ego. And because the flower is spiritual, it's suitable to be offered to Krishna. And that's why we say, you can't have dogs in the house if you're doing puja, because the dogs will see the bhoga and they'll lust after it, and you can't offer it. Because as soon as someone sees it and thinks, oh, that's enjoyable, it's material, and you can't offer anything material to Krishna. Isn't that interesting? So you can only offer something if it's spiritual. And it's only spiritual when you see it for Krishna's service. And that means there's no false ego. Is that okay? Water. Okay, I should drink water. Thank you. Water, but I should travel with someone who every 2 hours tells me to drink a cup of water. Because I don't always drink enough. Okay, we're going to continue reading. The cycle of birth and death is present in life other than the human form. When the living entity gets the chance for human life, however, it is his chance to get free from the chain of the law of karma. Karma, akarma, and vikarma are principles very clearly described in Bhagavad Gita. Actions which are done in terms of prescribed duties mentioned in the revealed scriptures are called karma. Actions which make one free from the cycle of birth and death are called akarma. And actions which are performed by the misuse of one's freedom, thereby directing oneself toward the lower region, are called vikarma. So you have that? Karma, akarma, and vikarma. Akarma is easy, no karma. Vikarma means unauthorized, and karma means according to the prescription of the Shastra. Of these three categories of activities, the one which makes one free from the cycle of further bondage to karma is preferred by intelligent men. Ordinary men want to perform good work in order to be recognized and to achieve some status of life in this world or in heaven. But more advanced men want to get free altogether from the reactions of work. Intelligent men know well that both good and bad works are equally causes of the material miseries of life. They therefore seek to do work which will free them from the reactions of good and bad work. This freedom from good and bad work is ascertained herewith in Sri Isopanisad. The instruction of Isopanisad is better explained in Bhagavad Gita, sometimes called Gita-Upanishad, the cream of the Upanishads. In the Bhagavad Gita, the personality of God, it says that no one can attain the state of Naishkarma or Akarma without beginning the prescribed duties mentioned in the Vedas. The Vedic literature can regulate the working energy of the human being in such a way that one can gradually realize the authority of the Supreme Being. And this is also another principle of Isopanisad, to gradually, slowly introduce Krishna. And Prabhupada says, and I think we'll read it later, or in another place he says, that sometimes you can't automatically introduce the concept of God or Krishna as Supreme Personality of God. You have to do it slowly, just by basically defining the concept of God and what isn't God, and what is Paramatma, what is the nature of the world. And so Isopanisad is doing that also. Especially for impersonalists who will have a harder time. When one realizes the authority of the personality of Godhead, it is to be understood that he has attained the stage of positive knowledge. At this purified stage of life, where the modes of nature, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance, cannot act, one is enabled to work on the basis of Naishkarmya, or work which does not bind one to the cycle of birth and death. Once Prabhupada was on the beach and the man was fishing. So Prabhupada walked by. I think the fisherman actually offered some fish. Prabhupada said, no, thank you. And then Prabhupada walked by, and Prabhupada turned to the devotees and said, you catch, you enjoy, you suffer. You catch it, you enjoy eating it, and then you suffer. That's the process. You know, it's such a paradox, isn't it? The things you enjoy end up becoming the causes of suffering. And the ultimate paradox is that we're trying to enjoy the body, and then we become attached to the body, and then we die with this desire to continue enjoying, and then we get the body, which ends up being the cause of suffering. So what a paradox is that you need a vehicle that causes you suffering to enjoy. Funny, isn't it? Sad. That's not funny, it's sad. But the living entity is so confused and so bewildered by material energy that they can't see that. And sometimes, even though they see it, Bhagavatam says, even though they see it, they can't see it. Pasyanapina pashyati. Even though they see, they don't see. You ever try to explain something to somebody and it's like, you've explained it like 100 times and you've done everything you can to make it as simple as possible, and they just argue? There was a conversation that Prabhupada had with a man like that. Prabhupada was trying to explain it on the body, and the man couldn't get it, no matter how Prabhupada tried to explain it. No matter how many times and how many angles, he couldn't get it. So that is the power. That just shows us the power of Maya to cover. She has this covering Shakti. It just shows. It's amazing how well she can cover people's intelligence. And some of the people's intelligence that she covers materially are very successful people, are bright, intelligent. They've invented things, or they've developed successful companies, or they have artistic intelligence, or musical intelligence, or kinesthetic intelligence. But spiritual intelligence is completely different. That doesn't mean that because you have a high IQ, you can understand what Prabhupada's saying. You need prasada lesha, a little prasada. Prasada, Gopinath Acharya told Sarvabhauma, you cannot understand Mahaprabhu unless you get a little mercy. You don't have any mercy, so you can't understand. Even though you're so smart, you can't understand. Yes? Actually, no one has to do anything more than to render devotional service to the Lord. In the lower stage of life, however, one cannot at once adopt the activities of devotional service, nor can one completely stop reactionary work. So this is interesting. The Prabhupada is saying, at a certain stage, if someone is on a lower platform, it's going to be difficult to immediately engage all their activities in devotional service. A conditioned soul is accustomed to working for sense gratification, for his own selfish interest, immediate or extended. An ordinary man wants to work for his own sense enjoyment. And when the principle of sense enjoyment is extended from the individual to include the collective society, nation, or humanity in general, it assumes various attractive names, such as altruism, socialism, communism, nationalism, humanitarianism. In other words, Prabhupada's saying that these activities sound benevolent, but they're extensions of bodily conception. You may even find this among animals. They group together. They look out for one another. So it's still, the basic principle is still the same. It may adjust itself in how it manifests, but it's basically the same. We want to do something to help society. Mostly that means how we can help people enjoy more, doesn't it? Well, if we do this, people will be healthier. If we do that, they'll get a better education. If we do this, the environment will be cleaner and so on. And what's the ultimate goal of all that? More sense gratification. Dun, 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 the grand prize. More sense gratification. That's the point Prabhupada's making. So whatever it is, what's the goal of the communist? Sense gratification. What's the goal of the capitalist? Sense gratification. Humanitarians, sense gratification. You know, it's all the same. These isms are certainly very attractive forms of karma bandhana, the bondage of one's own work. But the Vedic instruction of Sri Isopanisad is as follows. If you actually live for any of the above isms, make them God-centered. There is no harm in becoming a family man, an altruist, socialist, communist, nationalist, or humanitarian, provided all such activities are executed in relation with Isavasya, the God-centered conception. We had a Bhakti Godhead, I don't know when it was, maybe in the 1970s. It said, on the front cover it said, God-centered communism. So I was in a very conservative area, and I was distributing. And during the day, a policeman came up to me and said, "You're distributing communist literature." They wanted to arrest me because it's illegal in America to promote communist literature. And this man got really upset because the word communism was in. And Prabhupada used that. Yeah, you have your communism, Marx, Lenin, they're the center, and we have ours, Krishna's the center. So Prabhupada's making a nice point. He's basically saying, it really doesn't matter what you do. If you put Krishna in the center, it all becomes perfect. So this, of course, is ABC Bhakti. We understand these things, but it's nice to see the context in which Prabhupada explains this. God-centered activities are evaluated in Bhagavad Gita as being so rich that even a little bit of them can save one from the greatest danger. The greatest danger of life is to glide down again into the evolutionary cycle of birth and death. So, swapyapyasya dharmasya chayate mahato bhayat. If you do a little bhakti, you'll get the chance to do bhakti in the next life. One time the devotees were asking Prabhupada about feeding the ducks. What happens if you give the ducks prasadam? He said, human form of life, next life. So you come in touch with bhakti. Either you're guaranteed a human form of life or guaranteed a human form of life with the opportunity to do devotional service, or if you do devotional service, guaranteed the human form of life in a devotee family. So no fear. The greatest fear, try it day. You're free from it because you've done devotional service. So simple, isn't it? And when you think about it, and we all know this, we're doing devotional service. It's basically the same thing everyone else is doing, right? We're singing, we're dancing, we're eating, we're getting together, talking, we're working, raising families. We're doing what everyone else is doing. And the only one little tiny difference is for Krishna. It's not for the false ego. And that saves you from all the karma. And that's amazing, isn't it? The exact same thing that's going to create all this karma. We're doing it. And there's no karma. Not only no karma, but we're going to be free from karma. That's amazing. We're so fortunate, isn't it? You like to dance? You know, dancing creates karma. Because it's not for Krishna. And all those ants and bugs you step on when you dance, yeah. But now we dance for Krishna. It's the same thing. You like to eat? Yeah, we like to eat. So just offer it. Then, if you don't offer it, what does Krishna say? You're eating sin. That's amazing. You know, just something innocent like eating. We have to eat to maintain our body. And Krishna said, if you don't offer it, you're eating sin. It's a big trap, the material world. You'll never get out. We're still here. We haven't got out yet. That just proves the point. And now a little bhakti, and your path to liberation begins. If some way or another a man misses the spiritual opportunity offered by his human form of life and thus glides down again into the evolutionary cycle, it must be considered the most regrettable incident, although foolish men cannot see this due to his defective senses. Sri Isopanisad advises us, therefore, to exert our energy in the Isavasya spirit, and in that engagement we may wish to live for many, many years. Otherwise, one's long life is no better than that of a tree, which is also a living being, and which lives for hundreds and hundreds of years. There is no point in living a long time like the trees, or breathing like the bellows. That's a verse in the second canto, the bellows of the blacksmith. They're also breathing. So what's the difference between your breathing and their breathing? What's the difference between your life and the life of a tree? Kind of a heavy statement, isn't it? Or, there's no point in living a long time like trees, or breathing like the bellows, or begetting children like the hog and the dog, or eating like a camel. So the Shastra is really heavy. It's calling us hogs and dogs and camels and bellows and trees. You going to take that? Yeah, we must take it because it's true. Yeah. What is the difference between you and a dog? You eat, the dog eats. You sleep, the dog sleeps. You defend, the dog defends. You mate, the dog mates. What is the difference if you're not Krishna conscious? What's the difference? You know, Prabhupada was in a car once, and they were driving down the road, motor car. I mean, Prabhupada saw the invention of cars in his life, so we take it for granted, but for him, it's like, oh, there was a time there were no cars. Now there are cars. So, like for us, we grew up without phones and computers, so we can think of life pre-computer and pre-smartphone and after, and look at the pros and cons. So Prabhupada's in his car, they're driving somewhere, and he's saying, what is the difference between us and a dog? He said, we're running somewhere in our car on 4 wheels, and the dog is running somewhere on 4 legs. But the running business is the same because we're running for the same reason, sense gratification. So what is the difference between you and the dog? And why did Prabhupada say this? Because the car is a technologically advanced machine, and the whole world is changed because of it. And we so-called, we appreciate the car. We think this is an amazing invention, and they're getting better all the time. And Prabhupada, the guru, just with his knife slashes the illusion and say, yes, your car is very nice. And you're running in your car for the same reason the dog is running. How are you more advanced than the dog? What is the difference? You just get there sooner. You get your sense gratification sooner, he gets it later, but you're running for the same reason. Interesting, huh? Prabhupada is very sarcastic at times. But, we need that. It helps us. What, Prabhu? What are you running around for? Same reason the dog's running. Eating, sleeping, mating, defending. So, even a humble life with God-centered activities is more valuable than the colossal hoax of so-called altruism or socialism without any relation to God. Wow, colossal hoax. The colossal hoax of so-called altruism or socialism without any relation to God. Now, let's try to understand where Prabhupada's coming from. Prabhupada's mission as a representative of the disciple succession is to get every living entity out of the material world. So he's saying, hello everyone, there's a colossal illusion now. And you've been thrown into this illusion and mesmerized. And that's why you're still here in the material world. And I want to break that illusion and get you out of here and make you realize that this life you live has been programmed into you. It's just an illusion that's been handed to you, and it's not real. So that's the vision of the pure devotee. That's what he sees his job as, breaking through the clouds of this illusion. Last paragraph. When activities such as altruism are executed in the spirit of Sri Isopanisad, every one of them becomes a form of karma yoga, as is recommended in Bhagavad Gita. And that guarantees the executor against the dangers of the evolutionary process of birth and death. Such God-centered activities, even though half finished, are still good for the executor, because they will guarantee him the uniform of life in his next birth. In this way, he can have another chance to improve his position on the path of liberation. So, that finishes text 2. And if you have any questions now would be a good time to ask. Well, maybe I should ask you questions. Hold on. Yes.
Guru Maharaj, in one lecture you had told that your work is to help us think, help us how to think.
Yes.
So that has helped many of us to introspect. So thank you for that. So my question related to these thoughts is that these are not my thoughts, they're thoughts of my mind. So I as a soul, do I also have some thoughts, or everything emanates from the material mind?
The pure soul will generate pure thoughts. The impure soul will generate impure thoughts. But you are not the thoughts. You're the observer, you're the consciousness, you're the soul. But when we say your original consciousness is Krishna conscious, what does that mean? The mind's a vehicle for your thoughts. So Krishna, you're pure, in pure existence, you will generate pure thoughts of Krishna. So in a sense, yes, ultimately you have to take responsibility for your thoughts. Because as you become Krishna conscious, your thoughts will change. So, but it seems like those thoughts are thrown upon you, but they're actually thrown upon you because you've got that consciousness. You have generated that consciousness, which then generates thoughts that align with the consciousness that you're trying to live by, which is that I'm the enjoyer. So you have all thoughts about how you can enjoy. So yeah, you're obviously generating them. And but the mind is just a material vehicle, so the thoughts can come into play, come into action, can be utilized. Without a body or mind, they can't be exhibited. So, but when they hit the platform of mind, if they're not Krishna conscious, they may understand we're not obliged to act on those thoughts, although we think we are. That's the false ego. So that's how you control your mind, by realizing, okay, these are thoughts which are not necessary. Maybe they're being generated. Also you can say they're being generated by the modes of nature. in, and therefore, because they're not generated, if they're not Krishna conscious thoughts, I don't want them, I don't need them, and I don't have to act on them. So that's the other part of the answer. Yeah, when you're not Krishna conscious, then everything's generated by the modes of nature. And it's a vicious cycle because it's generated by the modes of nature, and then if you're not careful, you'll act being impelled by those modes of nature, which then keeps you within the modes of nature, which keeps you acting according to the modes of nature. So you have to, through knowledge, you understand your entanglement, and you start to pull yourself out and think differently, and then thus act differently. Yes. Follow-up question.
Yeah. Like now, what even within Krishna consciousness, we have so many thoughts. So, what can be the barometer we set? Like, okay, I should act on this. I should not act on this. Even within.
Yeah. So, one simple way to make any decision is how will this get me closer to Krishna? How will it help my Krishna consciousness? How will it help the service of Srila Prabhupada? And you will see if you apply this principle, it makes it much easier to make so-called difficult decisions. A lot of times we make decisions, but they're not based on anything but material pros and cons. And you'll always first want to consider what's the best spiritually. Something may be good materially, but it's not good spiritually. And this happens to us. It's a very common problem. That we're considering what to do, and we're only considering it from the material point of view, and then we make a decision, and then we find out too late that this decision I made is negatively impacting my spiritual life. So I wasn't thinking of that when I decided to take up this occupation or go to school or get this job and so forth. I didn't realize how much time it would take. And so first we want to think in terms of how every decision we're making is impacting us spiritually. We tend to think of it, how it's impacting us materially, because that's our conditioning. How much money will it make? Well, it'll make a lot of money, but you won't have any time to chant japa. No problem. As long as it makes money, I'll do it. That's the material way of thinking. No, it's going to impact my spiritual life. I won't do it. I'll only do it if I can maintain my spiritual life. That's the idea. Anukulyena, Krishna Anusila. Is it favorable for bhakti? First two principles of surrender. Do what's favorable, do what's not favorable. Avoid what's not favorable. That's hard sometimes, isn't it? You really want to do something, it's not favorable for bhakti, and then you start rationalizing, making, yeah, but, you have to be real, so many other devotees aren't doing it, and, what can you expect? I'm just a woman, I'm a condition. You go down your whole list to rationalize doing something that's harmful for your bhakti. That's insanity. Why would you do that? And we do that, isn't it? Because we want to do it. We're attached to doing it. Okay, if you're attached to doing it, you have to figure out how to do it in a Krishna conscious way so it doesn't destroy you. Because why would you want to do something that destroys your bhakti? After all these lifetimes, we finally come to bhakti, and now we're still calculating how to enjoy materially. That's insanity. It makes absolutely no sense. You finally come to the ultimate prema paramartha mahan. Now you've come to the ultimate artha, prema, and you're still calculating at the cost of your own bhakti how this would be materially beneficial, and then rationalizing it with some stupid argument. That's one of the stupidest arguments ever. Well, everybody's doing it. Okay, everyone's drinking poison. Well, then why should drink poison also? Good argument. But one philosopher said, if everybody's doing it, that's how you know not to do it, because everybody's doing it. Because the mass is ignorant. So if they're all doing it, don't do it. And that's a general rule of thumb. If everyone's going left, go right, because generally the mass goes the wrong way. So we make these excuses. Oh, I have to be real. So you'll be real, and take another birth. That will be real for you. No. Being real. You want to be real is to be Krishna conscious. That's what being real is. Well, Prabhu, you have to be real. Yeah, exactly. Being real is being Krishna conscious. And then by being real, we mean, you have to be in mind. I have to be in mind because that's real for me. What kind of stupid argument is that? What purport did you get that from? And that's the point. Sometimes we come up with this rationale which is not supported anywhere in Prabhupada's books, and actually it's contradictory to everything Prabhupada says, and we're coming up with these ideas to rationalize our own Maya. What's the point? It's insane, isn't it? Hare Krishna. Yes. No, Uttam has to ask the question first. Oh, related? Okay. Related.
Maharaj, sorry, it's related. Maharaj, we're not like the actions when we are thinking something, we're not supposed to act on it, and we are supposed to bring Krishna in the center. These emotions that are like the anger or anger, intolerance, that time they are so fast that we don't even get time to think on them. So then at that time, how do we get them into control?
It's a very good question. Everybody knows it's difficult to control anger. And as we say, ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Once you're angry, it's hard to control. So here's a little thought for you. You have two boxers. They're fighting the heavyweight championship of the world. You have boxers, and I've never seen Indian boxers. You have boxers? But they're not world champions. Not yet. Well, boxing is a very popular sport in America. My father was watching boxing all the time, so I know something about boxing. So, you have two boxers, right? Here's the saying. The boxer does not win the fight in the ring. He wins the fight in the gym where he's practicing. Because when he goes to the ring, whether he wins, obviously he has to do something in the ring. But if he's not prepared when he's in the ring, he can't win a fight he's not prepared for. So he actually is winning the fight in the preparation stage, not in the actual fighting stage. Right? If you're an actor, you're performing in theater, right? Your performance is not the real thing, it's your preparation. Right? So it's the same with controlling our senses. When you're in an environment which is disturbing you, if you have not practiced sense control, if you have not understood the causes of your anger and the triggers of your anger and how to deal with that, when you get in an environment, it's very difficult to control. It's actually too late. So an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. If you have an anger issue, my advice to you would be to understand what is triggering those angers and why and how you're allowing those triggers to affect you. We just did a retreat in Mayapur, and we did 4 days, and this was one of the big issues we talked about. And I'll share a little bit because it's so relevant. Think about something that upsets you. It could be anything. Any little thing. When someone leads a kirtan and they play mridanga this way, I leave. I can't tolerate it. If they cook this way, or whatever, any stupid thing that upsets you. And if you think about it, you are the one allowing yourself to be upset by that. Because unknown to you, you have a rule, and you don't realize you have a rule, that this upsets me. You actually have a rule. If you're upset by something, you actually have a rule. This is upsetting. And you could actually change that rule. Isn't that amazing? You can actually change your rule. So right now, think of that thing that upsets you, and think about changing the rule about what upsets you. You don't have to be upset by it, but you actually have a rule. Oh, the women, they want to be in the front of the temple. I can't stand it. All right, change your rule. It's okay, they're in front of the temple. You just change the rule. Now when they're in front of the temple, it doesn't bother you. New rule. Jagannath Swami ki jai. Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Jai Ganapati. Ganapati's watching from America. So it's what is causing you to become angry. It could be a way you're thinking. It could be a modality of thinking. It could be a belief. Like when we teach the forgiveness course. Some of you have taken the forgiveness course. Sometimes somebody can't forgive because they have a rule about who to forgive and when to forgive and who not to forgive and when not to forgive. And they don't even know they have the rule. And it's just a rule that was inherited from your family or society or who knows where, or from a past life. So let's say I have a rule that I cannot forgive a family member. I could forgive anybody, whatever they do I could forgive, but I can't forgive a family member. That's my rule. Why? Because I believe that a family member should never do anything which would hurt me. And if they do, their act is unforgivable. That's your rule. So no matter how many courses you go on forgiveness, you'll never be able to forgive them until you change the rule. And we have so many rules we don't even know we have. And I know this sounds simple, but in many ways it is. If you change the rule about what's causing you to become angry, miraculously it won't disturb you anymore. You know, like I'm saying, basically you could decide not to be disturbed by something that has traditionally disturbed you. Okay, it sounds easy, but it's not as difficult as you might think. I mean, if I'm banging you in the head with a hammer, yeah, you're going to be disturbed. That's different. That's physiological pain. I'm not talking about that. But I want you all to think of all the things that disturb you and think, could I change the rule so that it no longer disturbs me? And you will find, in many, if not all cases, you could actually do that. And now the same thing that was disturbing you does not disturb you. Isn't that interesting? Or young brahmachari, he sees a beautiful woman, he's disturbed. Okay, what's your rule? The rule is, I'm a man, I'm the enjoyer. Everything is meant for my enjoyment. All women are meant for my enjoyment. Change the rule. Woman is mother. Oh. All of a sudden, I see her as mother, the rule changed. I'm not disturbed anymore. Who's disturbed by their mother? But when I think all things are meant for my enjoyment, I get disturbed. So if you want to change your reaction, you've got to change the rule that's causing the reaction. Otherwise, just trying to withstand it, it's not the ultimate solution. You have to be very strong. So I think a lot of things that upset us unnecessarily. They don't have to. We just allow them to upset us. Like, have you ever said, oh, that's so annoying when people do this? What are you saying is, I get annoyed when they do that. And in other words, you're saying, I'm allowing myself to get annoyed when they do that. And every time people do that, I will get annoyed. And so why would you want to live like that? It doesn't make any sense, does it? Why would you want to allow what other people do to annoy you? What kind of hellish consciousness and life would that be? Right? Now, if they're doing something which is not Krishna conscious, and it would help you to be annoyed because that would enthuse you to preach and do something, that's different. But I hate it when people do blank. Okay, every time people do blank, you're going to get upset. Right? Now to say I hate it, you may say it in a philosophical sense. Oh, I hate the fact that people are eating meat. But every time I go by McDonald's, I don't scream. That's a different thing. It's more of a philosophical thing. You know, they say when you get angry, count to 10. That's not a solution because you're still within that realm of being triggered. And then if you're not good at doing what I said, at least remove yourself from environments that trigger that anger. I can't talk to that Prabhu. Why? Because every time I talk to him, I get agitated. And I don't know how to control it. Okay, just don't talk to him. At least do that. You know, okay, I tried the mother thing. It only worked for 3 minutes. Okay, just stay, 26 meters away from any beautiful woman. Just, or wear blindfolds or do something. So you may have to do something practical until you evolve more. So that's like a backup plan. If you can't do the first, then you do the second. Then you don't allow those triggers you don't allow to be in an environment where you have those triggers. We've seen this, it's practical. We've seen this, that sometimes people have so much difficulty with their family, they actually consciously make an effort to get a job in Europe or America so they don't have to live with their family anymore. I've seen them, they've told me, they're just honest about it. They said, yeah, everything's good now. We couldn't living with our family was impossible. We couldn't resolve it. And so it was a big trigger, and they got rid of the trigger. So then the family visits them once a year for a week or two, everything's fine. But they don't live down the street. So, if they live down the street, you have to visit them every day, every other day, and so forth. So it would be better if they didn't trigger you, but some situations the triggers are strong and they're very difficult to tolerate. And so then you have to remove yourself from the trigger a little bit. That's also practical. Uttam has a question. That's okay?
We talked about
False ego, yeah.
Me and mine.
Mm-hmm.
Then the times that we pray.
What's that?
Relatives.
Pray.
We pray. We pray in front of Jagannath Baladev saying that, please give my children this, please give my wife this, please give my parents this. Does it fall on the material platform or the false ego platform, or does it translate into the true ego?
Mm-hmm. And
it's for their spiritual benefit.
Yeah. If they're devotees, then yeah, and they'll use it for Krishna, then yeah, it's spiritual. And this is an interesting topic. I think it's also a little different if you pray for the same thing for yourself, unless it's purely for your advancement. Because I could pray for material things in the name of, well, it will be help me in my spiritual life, which may be true, but it may not be true, or it may be. See, it depends on the devotee and his mood, because some devotees, they don't want to ask Krishna for these things. They think they'd rather just say, Krishna, whatever you give me, I take that as your mercy, and I don't want to ask. And so, the answer to your question would depend on who you are and your level of consciousness. Because Prabhupada once said something very astonishing. He said even if a devotee is starving, he won't pray to Krishna for food. And so our natural logical mind would say, well, if you're starving, how can you serve Krishna? So naturally you would pray for food. But what Prabhupada means is that on a certain stage, two things. He doesn't want to ask Krishna for anything, and he has faith that if Krishna wants me to live, I'll live, and if he doesn't want me to live, I won't live. So that's a very, very elevated state, and we obviously can't imitate that, and it would be stupid to try to imitate that. But at the same time, it's there as a tattva to understand that that's something. Now, in the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada said something really, really interesting, and I think this maybe more directly answers your question. It's in relation to the story of Gajendra, and Gajendra had to pray. And so Prabhupada is using this same idea, or explaining this same idea, that a devotee doesn't like to ask Krishna for anything that would be engaged in helping him personally. But Gajendra couldn't defeat the crocodile, and so at a certain point he didn't know what to do, like Draupadi, so he prayed to Krishna. Krishna, help me, because I don't know what to do, and I don't want to ask you to come and help me, but I have no choice. And so Prabhupada said, a devotee doesn't like to ask Krishna, doesn't like to engage Krishna in his service to help. He said, but sometimes a grihasta, because he has to maintain a family, will pray to Krishna to help him. So because you're responsible for other people. And if it's yourself, you can say, okay, Krishna, whatever you want. But because I'm responsible for other people, I may pray to Krishna, please help me, so that I can provide for my family and take care of them, because now I'm having a difficult time. So I thought that was interesting, because there were times in my life when I didn't know from month to month how I was going to be able to pay all my bills. And I said, Krishna, please help me. And I don't know who else to turn to, or I don't know what else to do. So then when I read that purport, I felt, oh, okay, this is okay. Sometimes, because we're responsible. And for myself, yeah, I can live in the brahmachari ashram, 6 men in a room, no problem, right? But because I have a family, then I have to take care of them. So, the other answer, and kind of a generic universal answer, is in any time we're trying to figure out, is this material or spiritual, just ask why. Why am I praying? Why am I doing it? And that will determine, why am I doing this? That is an interesting question. Because when you ask yourself why, sometimes you'll find there's some strange motives in there. Like if you're honest, like why did I do this? I did it because I was afraid. Or I did it because I wanted to get some prestige or recognition. Or I did it because, what would be another, I wanted to outdo another devotee. So sometimes we need to be reflective and look at our motives. And oftentimes our motives are pure, but they're mixed with something impure. No, I want to distribute books, but in the back of my mind I also want to be number one. So pure motive mixed with impure motive. So in order to come to pure devotional service, we need to know if we're not pure and how we're not pure. So we need to be more aware of our motives. And so if our motive is to please Krishna, to make advancement, then that's good. Then we're fine. But if not, then you ask yourself, why am I praying? Is it that I want more sense gratification? Is that I want more material benefits so I can be more, so I can enjoy in this world? Material benefits are not a problem if they're for Krishna service, but if they're for a sense enjoyment, then it's a problem. Of course, then another argument would say, well, at least you're praying to Krishna, you're not praying to demigod, you're not an atheist. But that argument is not really an argument for us as devotees, because we're already devotees. That's an argument for non-devotees, because that will bring them up. But for us, that would bring us down. So you can't use the same argument for people in two different statuses, because if someone's low and they pray to God for something material, at least they're praying to God, which is better than what they were doing last week, which was not praying. But we already know what pure bhakti is, so if we're praying for something material, then that brings us down. So we have to be careful not to apply certain principles that are really meant for people who aren't devotees or very neophyte devotees. It's part of the rationalization. Well, Prabhu, it says right here in the Shastra. And why would you want to use the Shastra to enhance your material life? It doesn't make sense, because that only would keep us entangled. So in this retreat we did in Mayapur, it was 4 days, about 8 hours a day, well, with lunch, 7 hours, 8 hours minus 1 for lunch. This was one of the things we looked at. Motive. Why do you do what you do? And as you look at your motives, oftentimes you'll find there's something in there that shouldn't be, from our past conditioning. Why did I come to Bangalore? So I could give a great class and you'd all think I'm wonderful. So I could come and collect disciples. So I could come and collect money, all these things. Right? Or did I come here to represent Prabhupada and preach and help you? What's my motive? Why am I doing puja? So people will think I'm a Brahmin. Or because I'm attached to the deities, because I want to purify myself, because I want to raise the standard. Why? Why am I doing this thing? Right? So, like we've been talking in class, the last 2 classes we had in the evening, we've been talking about self-honesty and self-deception. So part of self-deception is not to be aware of my motive. That my motive may be impure, and I'm not even aware of it. I think it's pure. And so self-honesty is to be aware. We need to read the next verse. So hold your question. Let's see. I don't think this is a long purport. And yeah, there's one main point of the next verse, which is going to come up on your test. And it's the word Atmaha, and Atmaha means killer of the soul. And it's an interesting concept. Killer of the soul is such an interesting concept because the soul can't be killed. We learned that in Bhagavad Gita, right? Can't be, it's not material, so you can't burn it, can't dry it, can't moisten it, can't chop it up. You can't kill it, it's not material. And then here, the verse is saying Atmaha. Chatmahana. Chatmahana comes from Atmaha, killer of the soul. So, translation, mantra 3. The killer of the soul, whoever he may be, must enter into the planets known as the worlds of the faithless, full of darkness and ignorance. So, how does this relate to the last verse? Well, the last verse is saying, not karma lipyatena. If you don't act for Krishna, the alternative is this. This is the alternative. You create this karma, and then you go down. And so, what does Prabhupada mean by killer of the soul? This is interesting. Sometimes Prabhupada says, as I mentioned earlier, soul-killing civilization. This is a soul-killing civilization. What is a soul-killing civilization? Well, it's explained in this verse. Your next life you go down. That's a soul-killing civilization. You've just killed your soul. What does Prabhupada mean? You have a human form of life and you've killed the opportunity to perfect your life, to become Krishna-conscious, self-realized. That means you're killing yourself. You're killing your spiritual life. That's what killing the soul means. So there's some examples Prabhupada has given, because on 2 occasions Prabhupada was asked this question. What does it mean to be envious of yourself? It's a similar concept, killing yourself or envious of yourself is like kind of like a Buddhist aphorism. You know, how can you be envious of yourself? How can you be envious of somebody else but myself? But so Prabhupada said, if you do something which is detrimental to your spiritual life, you're actually envious of yourself because you're harming yourself. And envy in Sanskrit often refers to harming. Like Prabhupada said, we're envious of the animals we eat. He said, I'm not envious of animals. I don't want to be a cow. No, but envy means you're killing. You're destroying. So you're envious of yourself. You're destroying yourself. So Prabhupada said, for example, if I go to a secluded place with a knife and I slit my throat, nobody can stop me. So he said, spiritual suicide. We're killing ourselves, no one can stop us. Only we can kill ourselves. You are your own worst enemy. Srila Prabhupada, what is the greatest obstacle to our spiritual life? You. You're the greatest obstacle. That was his answer. So, only you can kill yourself. Nobody's going to kill you. Nothing in this world can kill you. No matter how bad Kali Yuga gets, no matter how bad things are, nobody can destroy your spiritual life. Only you can destroy it. You have the Shakti to kill yourself. Spiritual suicide. Purport. So I have to kind of read this purport in record time because we have 15 minutes. Am I talking too fast for you?
No.
It's okay? I think Bangalore is like the place where English is most well spoken, isn't it? One of the places. A human life is distinguished from animal life on account of its heavy responsibilities. Those who are cognizant of these responsibilities and work in that spirit are called suras, the godly. And those who are either neglectful of the responsibilities or who have no information about them are called asuras, or demons. Demon is not a good word. It has a negative connotation. I think in Prabhupada's use of the word, it doesn't have a negative connotation. Demon is basically, it's a synonym for ungodly. So if we say godly, ungodly, that sounds more politically correct than devotees and demons. Doesn't it? because demons generally have horns, right? So Prabhupada's not referring to people with horns, it's just referring to people who aren't following the Vedas, right? So ungodly, or godless, or those who don't follow the Vedas. There are only these two kinds of human beings all over the universe. In the Rig Veda, it is stated that the Suras always aim at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Vishnu and act accordingly. Their ways are as illuminated as the path of the sun. Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam Sadapashanti Surya. That's the verse. The demigods are always looking towards the sun-like lotus feet of Vishnu. That's what it means to be Sura. You always look to Krishna, and Asura means you always look away from Krishna. If you're back to the sun, that's Asura. Intelligent human beings must always remember that this particular form of body is obtained after an evolution of many millions of years of transmigration of the soul. This material world is sometimes compared with an ocean, and this human body is compared with a solid boat designed to cross over the ocean. So you know this example? Is that going to be on the test? Maybe? Example? What?
Analogies are there. Analogies.
Analogies. This is an analogy, yeah. So, we have a slide, but we don't have the slide projector set up, do we? We have a slide. The body's the boat. The captain is who? Guru is the captain. So your body's the boat. It's an easy analogy. Your body's the boat. Material world's the ocean. The captain is directing the boat. And the Vedas are the favorable winds. So you get winds from the Veda, and then the Guru guides you exactly. And then your body's the boat. And here is a statement from the Bhagavatam. A human being who does not utilize life to cross the ocean of material existence must be considered the killer of the soul. So if you're asked on the test, what is the killer of the soul? It means you have a human body and you don't utilize it to cross the ocean of material existence, then you're killing the soul. Soul killers. The Vedic scriptures and the acharjas, or saintly teachers, are compared with the expert boatman, and the facilities of the human body are compared with favorable breezes. Whoa. Which can help the boat smoothly ply to the desired destination. Wait a minute. It says the Vedas and the Acharyas are compared with the expert boatmen. And the human body is compared with favorable breezes. That's different from the example given here. So how are they going to answer this on the test? We have two explanations here. Which can help the boat smoothly ply to the desired. That's a different example. If with all these facilities a person does not fully utilize his human form of life for self-realization, such an asura must be considered atmahana, a killer of the soul. Killer of the soul is destined to enter the darkest region of ignorance, to suffer perpetually. And here is the warning by Sri Isopanisad. Everyone's working hard to get ahead. But what happens in the next life? They go down in the name of getting ahead. There are swine, dogs, camels, asses, etc., whose economic necessities are just as important as ours. But the economic problems of these animals are solved under nasty conditions, while the human being is given all facility for comfortable life by nature. Because the human form of life is more important than animal life. And why is a man given better life than the swine and other animals? Why is a highly placed servant given all the facilities of comfortable life, rather than an ordinary worker? The answer is that the highly placed officer has to discharge duties of a higher nature. Similarly, the human being has the higher duties of life than the animals, who are engaged always in the business of feeding their hungry stomachs. So, ladies and gentlemen, now you know that as a human being, you are given special facility that the animals don't have for one reason and one reason only. To enjoy! No. To serve Krishna. And Prabhupada gives the example. What's the example? Someone is highly placed in a company, so everything is taken care of for them because their job is so important. They don't have time to do the little work, to clean their floor, or wash their clothes, or do all kinds of secretarial work. So now you have the human form of life. Take advantage. Jai Jagannath Swami. Jai Radha Krishna Chandra. Jai Lakshmi Narayana. Jai Gaurnitai. Gaurnitai, or they have a name? Nitai Chaitanya. Ki joy. You know I'm a Bengali, right? Nitai Chaitanya. Ki joy. Radha Krishna Chandra. Ki joy. Lakshmi Nrsimha. Ki joy. Jagannath. Subhadra. Balaram. Ki joy. Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Ki joy. The modern soul-killing civilization has only increased the problems of a hungry stomach. We approach some polished animal, a modern civilized man, and he says that he wants to work for the satisfaction of the stomach, and there is no necessity for self-realization. But the laws of nature are so cruel that in spite of his eagerness to work hard for his stomach, there is always the question of unemployment, and even after denouncing the prospect of self-realization. In other words, Prabhupada is saying, it's not easy to live in the material world, it's a struggle. And why should you struggle? You don't have to. If you live a God-conscious life and understand Krishna will take care of you. We're given this human form of life not to work hard like the ass, the swine, and the dog, but to attain the highest perfection of life. If we do not care for self-realization, it is by the law of nature that we have to work very hard, even though we do not want to do this. In this age, the human being has been forced to work hard like the ass and the bull, pulling carts. These are some of the examples of the regions where an asura is sent to work. So, lower life, hellish life, means you work harder. Heavenly life means you work less. So, on the heavenly planets, everything is there. There's great opulence. They're not worried about how they'll live. The lower planets, working harder. That's how it's described, and that's how we understand it. So, as Kali Yuga progresses, people are working harder. It's becoming more hellish. People are working harder now than your parents worked. People are working harder now than your grandparents worked. Is that true? It's true in America, for sure. And Prabhupada said his father just 6 hours went to the shop, at a cloth shop. 6 hours he could make enough money to support the family, and he spent about 6 hours doing puja. So Prabhupada said his real business was not as a cloth merchant, his real business was puja. And the cloth was just, merchant was just, had to do something. Right? So we have things a bit backwards. Yes? If a man fails to discharge the duties as a human being, he is forced to transmigrate to planets called Asurya. In the degraded species of life, to work hard in ignorance. And so Prabhupada's saying you could become an animal, and then, it's hard work being a dog. At least, maybe in Beverly Hills it's easier, but here in India it's hard to be a dog. For many dogs, right? They don't have a good life. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is also stated that the half-self-realized men who in their previous lives could not complete the process of approaching Godhead, but had sincerely tried for it. In other words, those who failed to attain success in realizing their relation with God are given the chance of appearing in the family of Suchi or Srimata. Suchi means a spiritually advanced Brahmana, and Srimata means a Vaishya, or member of the mercantile community. This means that such fallen candidates are given a better chance for cultivating self-realization on account of their sincere efforts in past lives. If the fallen candidates are given the chance of taking birth in respectable noble families, we can hardly imagine the state of those who have completely achieved success in the attempt. Anyway, this goes back to the Trayate Mahatobhaya verse. If you engage in devotional service, you'll be okay. You'll be taken care of. Even if you don't become perfect, you'll have the chance to become perfect again. Simply to make an attempt for realizing God is to guarantee that the next birth will be in a noble family. But those who do not make any such attempt at all, and who want to be covered by illusion, too materialistic and attached to material enjoyment, must enter into the darkest region of hell, as confirmed in all the Vedic literature. Such materialistic asuras, two more paragraphs, such materialistic asuras sometimes make a show of religiousness with the ultimate aim of material prosperity. The Bhagavad Gita, however, rebukes them as men called great on the strength of false perfection. Rebukes them as men called great on the strength of false perfection, empowered by the votes of ignorant and by material wealth. This is so interesting. I think it was Churchill's. Someone was describing democracy. And he said, if you just go out on the street and talk to the average man about politics, you will realize the average man has no idea at all how the political system works, what about domestic policy, international, has no idea. And you're giving them the power to vote, and they have absolutely no idea how a government runs. Isn't that interesting? So here Prabhupada's talking about these men are considered great because they get the votes of the populace. Such asuras devoid of self-realization and the conception of Ishvara, the Lord, are sure to enter into the darkest region. So it's, you win the votes of people, but if people are ignorant, as Bhagavatam says, the biggest dog is voted in by the other dogs. So it's not really, a compliment if you're voted in by other dogs. That means you're dog number one. Bhagavatam has no kind words for people who live like animals. And then you become the top dog. Yeah, exactly. He's the top dog. The conclusion is that we are not meant only for solving economic problems on a tottering platform, but we are also meant for solving the problems of material life into which we have been placed by the conditions of nature. So basically, this verse is saying, if you don't take the Krishna consciousness, your future is very dark because you're just creating karma, both in verses 2 and 3. And so, this verse is very inspiring for us as preachers, because if we see that without Krishna consciousness, people's future is very dark, we become inspired to give them prasadam, to give them the holy name. Give them a book, give them opportunity to engage in devotional service, because Prabhupada's saying here, if they engage, then they'll get the opportunity in their next life, even if they don't become perfect. And then in the purport to verse 2, Prabhupada saying it's gradual. For many people, it's gradual. That in this life, the only service they'll ever have is to eat a gulab jamun at a Hare Krishna festival. That may be it, but that guarantees they'll get a human birth. Isn't that amazing? One gulab jamun can protect you from the destination of the materialistic man. So it's 9:01 and we finish, but you don't have to go to work today. So I think we have time for questions. It's a holiday today. Today's a holiday. Corona Asura Jayanti or something. So there might be a question on your test about Bhagavat communism. So what did Prabhupada say? Communism is fine if Krishna's in the center. Any ism is fine if Krishna's in the center. Right? Yes? So, Sri Prashna Sindhu, I have a new name for her. Sri Prashna Sindhu, the ocean of questions. No, Sri Prashna Ananta Sindhu. The ocean of unlimited questions has a question. You have a question? Sri Prashna Ananta Sindhu Devidasi has a question.
This one, a pure devotee, like we shouldn't imitate, but then
Say that a little louder. I didn't hear.
a pure devotee, like we shouldn't imitate, but he doesn't even pray in the times of when he's not having food to eat.
Yes.
So then, but as Gravasthas, we can sometimes we can pray for managing our families. So then this can become a practice in praying to maintain our families, or sometimes in the times of emergency.
Well, generally, you won't need to pray if there's no emergency, because a higher stage of praying is faith, is having faith that Krishna will provide, because that's one of the 6 symptoms of surrender. But yeah, generally, that kind of prayer is what Prabhupada said in emergencies. Sometimes you're in a difficult situation, you don't know how to solve it, you'll pray. But in general, we have faith that Krishna will provide. So, faith is a higher level than prayer. Prayer means maybe I lack faith in Krishna's decision of how he deals with me. And so I've seen that. Some devotees, no matter what happens, they're always like, "No, Krishna will take care of it." Well, why don't you pray, Prabhu? I don't need to pray. I have faith in Krishna. So you can't imitate that. But no, you need to pray. This is dangerous. Pray. Okay. Sometimes devotees, when I'm in trouble, devotees ask me to pray. Krishna will take it. No, pray. We are in anxiety. Okay, I'll pray because you're in anxiety. But my tendency is to have faith. That if there's a difficulty, I guess Krishna wants it for a reason. Let's find out why. And he'll always take care of us. So that's a higher stage. But as I said, sometimes in difficult situations, and you need some solution, and it's like people will suffer, or you will suffer tremendously if there's no solution. Then in that situation, Krishna, I can't deal with this. Like Draupadi, this is a disaster. And sometimes you also consider in terms of your preaching, your own spiritual advancement. And so then maybe you'll pray because this was not, the situation I'm in is not conducive for preaching. If this happens, it's going to negatively affect my preaching, so I'll pray, Krishna, please help me in this way. Right? Like, let's say, like Prabhupada said, we're always worried that the non-devotees are going to try to destroy our movement. So we're praying to Krishna, please protect our movement. Namaste Narasingha, please protect us. When Prabhupada introduced the Nrsimha Pranam mantras, it was because there was a bomb attempt on one of our temples, and he said, chant this mantra to protect us. Installed Lord Nrsimhadev, Ugra Nrsimha in Mayapur because we were attacked. So, we need protection for spreading Krishna consciousness. So we pray to Krishna that way. But the highest state is, Krishna, you're my maintainer, you're my provider, I'm surrendered to you, I know you'll always take care of me. And I think that was the point Prabhupada was making in the purport. If you're not a devotee, you're just working hard to fill your stomach. But if you're a devotee and you engage in devotional service, Krishna will always take care of you. I like to say the Hare Krishna has a lot of fat devotees. So that means Krishna's taking care of us. There's no starving devotees in ISKCON, but there's a lot of fat ones. So that means Krishna's, He's feeding us, right? And we're just trying to serve Him, and somehow or other we're not starving. I've never seen a starving devotee. Have you? I've seen a lot of devotees that eat too much, but I haven't seen any starving devotees. I don't think that's a problem. I think overeating is a problem for us. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Question, comment.
Somebody is coming and praying to the Krishna for himself. Is your responsibility?
If somebody's praying to Krishna for himself, because it depends what you're praying for. Because the idea of a devotee praying to Krishna for himself, he's praying to Krishna to develop the qualities or the nature or the shaktis which will be pleasing to Krishna. So it's never for himself. It's only that he can be a better devotee for Krishna's pleasure. Like, there's one prayer of, I forget who it was, but different acharyas have translated the meaning of the Maha Mantra. And one of the meanings one acharya gave is, "O Krishna, let me be pleasing to you." So it's a prayer. I want to be pleasing to you. I want my consciousness and my actions to be pleasing to you. So help me be pleasing to you. Help me develop that consciousness. Krishna, I always pray to be more Krishna conscious because I know the more Krishna conscious I am, the more I can help people. So it's not that I'm praying, Krishna, make me more Krishna conscious because I really want to taste the bliss. No, and if I want to taste the bliss, it's only because I want that to give me, because it gives me the strength to be able to serve you better and to be able to help other people. So there's never a motive of I will enjoy Krishna and praying to Krishna so I can enjoy Krishna consciousness or I can enjoy mine. So when the devotee is praying, Krishna, please give me blank, he only wants that so he can be a better servant. That will give you pleasure. Right? Now, having said that, we go back to the other principle, that you have to pray according to your realization. So we have this prayer, "Oh Lord Nityananda, I'm always miserable and you're always happy, so make me happy." So what's the idea there? Well, the idea there is, if I am not Krishna conscious and I am not happy, Vaso Vacha Masopiyasya, I'm going to give up my Krishna consciousness in search of happiness elsewhere. So at a certain stage, a devotee may pray, "Krishna, make me happy because I'm not happy, and if I'm not happy in Krishna consciousness, I may leave. So please give me a taste for chanting, give me a taste for Bhagavatam association. I need this for my spiritual strength." But ultimately, it's because I want to please you. But in the interim, I need this to stabilize me. So it may be more of a personalized prayer, like I need the bliss. Right? Jagannath Swami Nayana Patagami Bhava to me. Please, Jagannath, reveal yourself to me. If you don't reveal yourself to me, I may leave. I may leave Krishna consciousness. I may not believe that you exist. I have such little faith and I have such little taste. So reveal yourself to me so I can have an experience of you, which will be an impetus for me. So ultimately, it's meant, some may say,